Hey, better late than never, I guess you could say. Having some technical difficulties here tonight. Welcome to Outlawed Live with myself, Ron Stone, and my good friend Mike Idle. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
Doing wonderful. Happy Veterans Day, first and foremost, to all of those out there who answer the call and give us the freedom to get on here and talk about truck and tractor pulling. So, veterans, thank you for all you do, and we're thinking about you today.
Amen. I love StreamYard, but I'm not crazy about whenever they change things and they don't tell you about it, and it won't let you go live, and then having camera issues as well. And nevertheless, here we are, Mike. Good to be here. Of course, thank you for filling in last week. I listened to some of the show between different flights heading down to Miami, Florida. Spent the week in Miami and Key West. Got back about 3 o'clock this morning. So, and then it was back to work and hard at it this morning. Getting ready for the 2026 season, getting ready for the Banquet coming up here in a couple of weeks. Very busy time, believe it or not, even though we're not pulling, it's still very busy.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to the Banquet. And, you just never know when you're going to run into an outlaw. You never know who you're going to see. Had a conversation last night with one of our drivers. First thing I said, you're going to be at the Banquet. I was at a junior high basketball game in Atlanta, Missouri. Ran into Tim Fitzsimmons up there. He lives right up there on the borderline between Macon and Atlanta. In fact, I think his kids go to school up there at Atlanta. So got to talk a little pulling, and he said, yep, Banquet's coming up soon. We're going to be down at the rules meeting. So the gears are turning. People have thoughts, opinions, ideas about all the adaptations that we're going to apply for 2026. It's going to be a great year out there. And big thank you to Blake Ott. You kind of mentioned last week. He and I had a great conversation where he walked us through a lot of the history of the Allison power plant, a lot of what it's still got left to offer. So big thank you to him for coming on last week.
Yeah, I hope I didn't let the cat out of the bag there last week. He had sent me a picture of that twin Allison in the shop, and in the
I was gonna ask him 100%, because I tell you what, that's what we do, Ron. We're broadcasters. You give us a little information. They pay us to take it public, but no, very exciting. Actually, my dad and I spent some time with Bodiot in his shop early this last pulling season, and he was telling us about how they've had big ambitions, and it's been in the works for a while. But fingers crossed, we should see a twin Allison entry out of the Ott camp this upcoming year. So, Ron, that the 7,400-pound Outlaw mod class continues to really take the world by storm. It continues to be something that people are looking at. If they get this thing together and we have a couple of twin Allisons out there, just more reason for this class to kind of cement itself as one of the premier classes in pulling, in my opinion.
Yeah, one of the biggest, I think, I said in 2024 that I expected that 7,400 class to grow significantly this past season, and it did. I mean, I'm not always right when I make those guesstimations, but I was right this year. The mods really came out in force, and wow, yeah, everybody took notice. It was a great year for the mods. The 4-1s really fell off in numbers this year. That was the biggest surprise for me. But yeah, to see that there are more mods being built, I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm looking forward to next season. There's a lot of things going on with the schedule. We got some new things. We will have a tentative schedule at the banquet for the pullers, and I will stamp tentative across that schedule so folks don't accidentally use that during the regular season, because we still have all the fairs conventions coming up. Some things could change. Some classes could move around. A promoter may say, hey, let's make a change here. I want to bring in this class and maybe drop this class, or drop 2 classes and add that class. So, but we want to try to give the pullers somewhat of an idea to start planning now for next year, but it is still a tentative schedule. And you're going to hear me saying that a lot until that final schedule comes out. One year, we did have someone show up at a pull in Buckner. They were using a tentative schedule. Their class wasn't even there. They were upset, but they had an old schedule. So we don't want that to happen, but the pullers want that tentative schedule as soon as they can get it so they can start planning. So a lot of folks checking in here. Andrew Sprock says, evening, guys. Mark Willis watching from Carrollton, Missouri, and Cole Lindahl watching from Wakefield, Nebraska. Tina and Eric Berger from Wilbur, Nebraska, and Ben Beller for the great state of Kansas checking in tonight. So, no, I received a message from Blake a couple of weeks ago, I think. Didn't have any text to it, just a picture of that thing. And then I remembered after I sent that message to the show last week that they were talking about buying a twin engine mod a couple years back, and it was kind of hush hush. And I thought about that, and I thought, oh man, I hope that wasn't a secret that
I want to chime in here, and you've been in pulling broadcasting longer than I have. You know, if you ever turn on ESPN first thing in the morning, and I mean, if there's the slightest ounce of news in football, baseball, you know, NBA, whatever season they're in, they'll take it and run with it. There's a lot of, in pulling, there's a lot of, you know, like you said, we don't want to let the cat out of the bag until next season. Ron, is that just out of drivers kind of like to have their own personal unboxing when something's in the mix?
So.
It seems like there's always this, you know, well, we better check first. And I always feel like these other sports, you know, boy, if they just hear a whispering rumor, oh, you know, Dak Prescott's getting traded to France or something like that, and they'll run with it like crazy. In pulling, is it just the pullers like to keep it close to their heart? What is the, you know, and I don't disrespect it by any means, but is it they like to be the ones to put it out when they're ready, I guess?
Yeah. First off, I'm no expert in the NFL, but France right now does not have a team, Mike. So,
well, I tell you what, the way the Cowboy season has been going, I think Dak Prescott might welcome that deal right now. He might get a little bit more defense over there. But you know what I'm saying? You hear a rumor and they'll go public. I think sometimes I kind of think that any news is good news for pulling. It generates conversation, but at the same time, you want to be respectful. Sure. And sometimes these pullers, they like to keep it buttoned up. So
now I can be tight-lipped when asked to do so, but that's what I was afraid I let that out of the bag. But it had been a while since they had told me they were going to buy one, and they wanted to keep it a secret. So, and when I got that picture, I just thought, oh, that's news, and wanted to throw it out there. Now, this year, we all were surprised by the newest pro stock to the circuit. You know, Chuck.
Yeah, with the Schluters out there.
And the Barn Buddy HD when it came out.
Yep. And
everyone
was
surprised by that.
Sometimes when you go and talk to the pullers in the pits, you almost, you know, have to let them know, hey, I'm over here. I've got my friend ball cap on. I don't have my social media ball cap on. Because I remember talking to Corey, and I said, hey, Corey, you know, I've heard some things. And he was kind of, you know, I said, hey, I don't have my phone. I'm not putting anything on Beer Money. You know, I wasn't even working for Beer Money at that time. And he says, oh, well, yeah, let me come in here and show you with that. I think it has to be the unveiled. They like to have that connection with the fans. But, you know, they love to talk about their equipment. Yeah, they kept that one buttoned up pretty tight to sneak that thing into Wisner, second biggest pull that we have. And, you know, they were able to unveil it on the track, you know, so.
Yep. That was a surprise for me. I had no idea on that tractor coming in. I actually thought it was a mistake on the paperwork, and it wasn't. So it was a pleasant surprise. So looks like I've got a new viewer checking in, John Hotham from Atchison, Kansas. Thanks for watching. Case Conover checking in from Texas. So the banquet coming up, Mike, I hope you have your room already I hear we're like 300 and some 50 rooms or something like that so far. Are you?
I hope I'm good to go. I think
Okay.
I'm good to go. As far
All right.
as
Good
far
deal.
as I know, I'm good to go. I tell you what, I took some time off from work. You know, it's in my plans. It's in my calendar. I plan on getting down there at about 11 o'clock Friday morning. I think the last I heard, we kicked things off with some meetings around 1, and then it's a busy weekend. You know, this is
Yeah.
gonna be my first year. You know, I've kind of eased in every year, and as my responsibilities have grown, and this is my first year where I get to see from every meeting all the way through, and a lot's going to get accomplished. It's busier than I would have guessed it to be
Oh,
2, 3, 4 years ago when I was just getting my feet wet in this. But I'm looking forward to it. I love being a part of that. A lot of interesting conversations are had, all things that are good for the Outlaws and all things that are good for pulling. So it's a fun weekend. And you get to cut loose a little bit on Friday night. And then the awards, if you ever have a chance, if you're a fan and you ever have an opportunity to live stream or to attend a pulling awards banquet, if you like pulling, this is the cherry on top. You know, you fight all season long for the points, and then to watch your heroes go up there and receive their awards and watch the hard work pay off, it's a neat thing to be a part of. It's definitely a cool experience.
Yeah, the meeting part of it, I mean, the banquet is for all intents and purposes is Friday and Saturday, with meetings all in between. We start. I'll be there Wednesday night and start meetings on Thursday. We have meetings on Thursday and Thursday afternoon, and of course those continue Friday and Saturday. We have the Young Guns meeting, but like you said, it is super busy. We just go from one meeting to the next. So many rules meetings. Of course, all those rules submissions were submitted and are in there. So any rule changes, I don't know. I'm sure there might be a few. I don't think there's going to be anything wild and crazy out there that's going to change. But the Organics breakfast will take place on Saturday morning. All the pullers are invited to that. And of course, some of the fun awards that we give away, not only the points, trophies and the checks and things like that, the sweeps, the Organic sweeps, trophies and checks, but the fun things like best appearing awards, which those are all voted on their peers, on all the folks in their classes. You know, best appearing tractor, best appearing truck, mechanic of the year, things like that. So a lot of really neat awards to go around. If you haven't been to the banquet and you're a member, man, you gotta come to the banquet. It's a fun time. And if you have kids, you still don't have an excuse because there's an indoor water park there. There's a bowling alley. There's a couple of arcades, 3 or 4 restaurants, I think, a pizza place, a bowling alley. I said that, but a spa for the ladies, of course, an indoor pool. So there's plenty of things to do there. And if you want to go off-site, there's shopping there at the outlet malls there in Osage Beach. So plenty.
Do you bring your golf clubs? Now, we've got some members in the Outlaws. Some of us, Ron, not myself. I don't know about you, but we got some big golfers, and there's some big golf down there. Do you throw the sticks in with you when you travel? Are you a golfer?
I haven't golfed in a few years. I do have clubs, but I will not have time to go golfing.
Sure.
There simply won't be time. The board meetings and the class meetings and all the meetings that go on, there just won't be time to partake in any golfing, unless maybe you went on Wednesday. Maybe you could go golfing, but I don't think might be able to slip something in Thursday, but Friday and Saturday, not happening. So Marty Samuelson checking in, the de facto mayor of Ravenna, Nebraska. So let us know who you think best appearing award would be. Mechanic.
I would like to hear that. Yeah, if the fans could chime in, you know, puller of the year. That's one that really intrigues me. Kind of the and Ron, and you can set the record straight. I kind of think of that as like the MVP. This is the person who just had a great front to back year. So, you know, fans, you guys are diehard watchers of the show and diehard Outlaw fans. Who are some names that stick out to you? Yeah, best appearing. You know, I looked back. I took a picture of my votes from this year, and I took a picture of my votes from last year. And I didn't do this on purpose, but all my votes were almost the same. So evidently I have a certain style of vehicle that really catches my eye out there. But it's hard to pick. We've got a lot of good-looking vehicles here in the Outlaws, you know.
Marty says we need to golf in Ravenna next year. would have to get there really early, maybe Thursday, to do some golfing. That'd be the only way. Friday and Saturday just way too busy. And usually, if I'm there a day early, I'm getting some setup done on that day before. So,
Pawnee City, Ron, have you announced out at Pawnee City that they park the vehicles on the golf course out there. You might be able to kill two birds with one stone going out there to Pawnee City. That thing's it's a converted racetrack, golf course, pulling back, county fair. You get it all at once right there, man.
Yeah, Thermal Thunder, Marty Samuelson. Is that your vote for Puller of the Year, Marty? Also, you got Rookie of the Year awards that'll be out as well. So I think Marty is talking about Puller of the Year.
I think Kayson's name is definitely going to have to be in the hat. I think he had an incredibly strong season. I think Keith Hammonds, at some point, you really got to start looking at him and saying
dominant.
You know, only 3 hooks that he didn't win this year. You really got to think about just respecting the overall performance of what he's been accomplishing. But you can go down a rabbit hole quick and in a hurry. I mean, the Bullbuster, brand new vehicle for all intents and purposes. And Donald parked that thing out there, and Donald grabbed a points championship with a 2-wheeler. So do you think about looking at him for Puller of the Year or Mechanic of the Year, keeping all that stuff going? It's going to be fun to see where those awards land.
Case Conover, of course, he's from Texas, asked if there's any new pulls in Texas. Tentatively, no. Tentatively, I'm going to say you're going to lose 1 pull. But the same weekend, you're only going to be about 35 minutes north. Not 100% confirmed yet, but 35 minutes north of there in Oklahoma is going to be that weekend. So if you can guess which one of those pulls is that close to the Oklahoma state line, that pull happens in late June. So we will be pulling that weekend, not in the state of Texas, but in the state of Oklahoma, just about 35 minutes away. So.
When was the last time? This is a good trivia question because I like to think of Oklahoma as being kind of squarely in outlaw territory, you know, Texas, Oklahoma, and then all our states here through the Midwest. That's our territory, no doubt about it. But we haven't been in Oklahoma in a while. When was the last time the Outlaws pulled in Oklahoma? Ron might know, or if we've got a fan that can tell us, when was the last time we were in the Sooner State?
I'm going to say it was Chickasha, and that's been 2022, I think.
Okay.
Maybe it was the last year we were there, before they just went with the Texas Truck and Tractor Pullers.
Yeah.
There at that event. We've talked to some other events, other possible venues in Texas and Jay, Oklahoma. There, I think it's close to Miami. Let's see, over in dang it, that one slips my mind. It's west of Oklahoma City. Outlaws have pulled there before. It's at a racetrack. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there was a possibility going there. But it looks like we're going to be in Colbert, Oklahoma in June.
Yeah.
Going to be a big event. Going to be the same classes that were at Whitewright this year, possibly one more, and maybe some big money and optional jackpot buy-in at that event. So just keep your ear to the ground. So big things are happening.
Yeah. And see, this is what I kind of like. This is just enough, in my opinion, going back to, you know, news that we take public versus what we don't take public. This is just enough because the fans are reading between the lines, tentative, very early, long time before all this gets set and concrete. But, you know, you can pick up some things there. Okay, we heard that there's maybe a shift from one state, a big venue, to another state. This is going to give fans something to talk about. Fans, have your discussions. You know, we encourage, you know, anything discussing outlaw pulling is good stuff. So a fan kind of listening between the lines there can kind of start pinpointing what might be happening.
Yeah, and of course the Holganic sweeps are going to expand. You're going to see some classes getting a little more money next year in those sweeps. And of course we are adding some events to the schedule, but at the same time trying to pull back some of those classes that have an excessive amount of hooks, trying to pull those back a little bit and get them at a reasonable number of hooks, so we don't burn people out and tear up too much equipment. But yeah,
Ron, one thing that I thought was incredibly intriguing and very successful, and you have a strong hand in kind of the mindset of developing the schedule and where those play out, were the trifectas this year. The trifecta that we ran with Illinois and Iowa, and then finished it up at Putnam County. Is that something that you feel that you're going to try to pursue, or that Holganics is going to try to pursue? I thought that did a really nice job of kind of opening the door and having some guys come over and play with us. They had fun. I talked to a lot of those pullers, and they said, you're going to be seeing more of us. Talk to us about the trifectas and if you think there's anything going on there in the future.
Yeah, I don't know. That was kind of a late addition. I think with the added money being added to the sweeps and some more classes being added to sweeps, I'm not 100% sure that we'll have that trifecta again. But like I said, it was fun. And we had some non-outlaw pullers involved that came over and dipped their toe in the water, in the outlaw waters over here, and had a good time. And I just got off the phone with one of those guys a little while ago about doing a pull in his neck of the woods, Russell Phipps over there. Mod puller.
They were the ones I spoke with as well that said really enjoyed being a part of what they saw going on over here. And good competitive tractor and good team.
Oh yeah.
No, but it's neat. It's neat. We saw the numbers bump up a little bit in that class, a class that's, catching a lot of attention. But then we saw them at a few non-sweep pulls going on out to Wisner and a couple other places where we saw some of those Illinois guys. I feel like that's kind of what happens when people have an excuse to run with the Outlaws. Then they kind of continue for a little bit, and they kind of seeing what it's all about. Really interesting to watch how that dynamic develops.
Yeah, no doubt that pullers enjoy the atmosphere that we have in the pits with the Outlaws. It's a family atmosphere. It really is. And Kurt Van Beek, I was going to speak to this too. That we may have a couple of classes that may have their own region or a couple of different regions for one particular class, where they can pull in either or both regions and try to win the points in both of those regions. So we're getting to that point now where we're getting enough hooks, and we're able to make those hooks. But some guys don't want to travel as far, and the hooks kind of get excessive. You start getting up over 20. So if we have enough competitors in those classes, why not, when we can, split them and let one go like Kurt has north and southeast, or northwest and southeast. Why not do that to accommodate those pullers and give them something to shoot for? So, and it's a possibility that they could go in and run both and possibly win both as well if they want to put in the miles, So
they could win two regional, like if they ran the southeast and the northwest, and this is very organic, very developing. This is something we've kind of been chewing on for a while. You could win both regions, and if it was played out to where there would also be a national, of that, depending on how those classes went, and then the Holganics, someone could really walk away with a heck of a summer if they committed to it. We're not saying that that's even the intent of that. It would be, hey, maybe this year I stay closer to Missouri and chase that southeast, or I stay closer to South Dakota and I chase that northwest, and it just fits better. There's a couple places, Ron, I can remember this last summer, 4 shows in 4 days, and we'll see the super farms, the light super stock ags, hit all 4 of them. That's big on some of that equipment,
The way we're planning that right now is, as far as when we're talking about splitting a class and having 2 different regions, there won't be a regional and national. It'll be 2 regional nationals, and then sometimes, like let's say a Rock Valley, let's say a Wisner, where it will be both. Will they be pulling for both regions? Will be competing for points at those particular events. So, we're trying to accommodate all the competitors and trying to take it easy on them to where they don't have to hook as many times as 25, 30 times to try to win a points championship. So Zook Fukerberg says he's having trouble seeing the podcast. Doug, I'm not sure. there are some issues going on here with StreamYard tonight. I'm not sure. So I'm had my share of troubles already this evening. So we're lucky to be where we're at right now. So anyone else having trouble, they can hear us but can't see us, I think is what Doug is saying. There's another tractor I like to see out a lot more next year is the Griffin Growl.
Yeah.
Hopefully he has things figured out on that tractor. So there, he said he's finally got it now. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
He's got it figured out. We were talking about you, so maybe he didn't hear us talking about him. But
perfect.
So Mike, you've got. Were you able to get your things uploaded? I mean, I know it was kind of late on the show.
Yep. On the when the smoke clears, you want to go ahead and dive into that a little bit. And big thank you to a lot of Outlaw pullers. I've been harping on a lot of you guys, and I've been sending out these biographies, and you always kind of hear me say, get these back. I want to feature all of you. And all of a sudden, a bunch have come in at once. So big thank you to a lot of you guys out there. So we're going to be sure to get those out in the next couple of weeks. So, but still, we want to hear from all of you. And if you're one of my good friends or one of the legends, you're someone that doesn't have Facebook, and maybe I call you or text you a lot. Not going to mention any names here, Cameron Neves. But, you know, if you can fill that out for me, we want to feature all of you guys out here. This week, we're going to feature a 3,200 RPM super field competitor, Mark Reardon. Let's take a look at his highlight video right now. All right. Awesome highlight video. Big thank you to Beer Money Pulling Team and Mackenzie Teeting, as always, for helping us out with that. Let's get Mark's biography pulled up right here. He wrote up a nice one for us. He says that he has been pulling for 3 years, drives a vehicle that he calls the Rum Runner in the 3,200 RPM super field class. First time he ever took it down a pulling track was in Cherokee, Iowa. Says the most memorable hook he's ever had was taking a first place victory home in what would have been his rookie season out there in Lee, Nebraska in 2023. Wildest ride. Now, here's the response you want when you ask a puller for wildest ride. He says, I haven't had one yet. So that's kind of what they want, but something tells me it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Points championships, and it's good to feature this. I think this is something that we need to turn, or I need to turn my eye to more often on the When the Smoke Clears program. Points championships, he says he doesn't have any national points championships, but he was the Outlaw Heartland East Division champ in 2023, 2024, and 2025. So someone that I saw a lot on the national circuit this year, but also someone who spends a lot of time pulling very competitively in that NSPA and Heartland group. And I have seen several times on the app, it's so big, or kind of their geography, they split it into an East and a West. So he's your 3-time defending points champion in the East division of that. Biggest pulling hero, Greg Jager. It's a good one to look up to if you're in the pro stock family out there. His day job, he has spent 32 years as a diesel mechanic, and he has been farming for 11. Says his upcoming pulling goals, he wants to win a national points championship. Says the best part about being an outlaw is the friends that he has made through pulling and the fans that support tractor pulling. They are like no other fans. And his message to those fans, thank you for supporting me and tractor pulling. Fans make the sport fun. It's what it's all about, giving it back to the fans. Best fans in the world are our Outlaw fans right here. When the smoke clears, you'll be looking at an Outlaw, and the Outlaw that you'll be looking at this week, Mark Reardon on the Rum Runner 3,200 RPM super field. Ron, it got me to thinking. The super field class, some people kind of call the beginning class, the entry-level class, the stepping stone to get into the world of pro stock tractor pulling, or even in the world of tractor side of tractor pulling. Now, you and I, we both like the trucks. You've driven the trucks. But if you weren't going to drive a truck, if you had to go drive a tractor, no modifieds, you got to drive, the tractor style vehicles out there. would you start with one that they kind of call a stepping stone or an entry level, or would you go for, call up Lacey Wager and say, let me borrow one of those red ones you got? What would be your class you would dive into right now if you got inside a roll cage?
I think that would be the obvious choice, I think, just to get the feel for it. I've as far as driving a smoker, I drove an 8500 light limited pro one time. As far as pulling.
Oh yeah, we've heard this story.
Yeah.
This was true. Okay.
Yeah. I've driven a couple of turbine powered light limited modifieds. But yeah, I think to get the feel for it, I think that's the best way to go. Start out and build your way up, so build your way up to super farm or limited pro and then pro. Of course, ideally, I'd want to go pro stock, but starting there, I don't know if I'd want to borrow someone else's tractor. Now, if they said, hey, I need you to drive it for me, I'd be like, sure, let's do it. But yeah, I would want to get, for my own sake, get the feel for it. If I was going to pull in that class, get that seat time in,
Do you have a fire suit still?
I do.
Do you throw that in when you go to the polls? Just in case, just being neighborly, the announcer, just in case someone needs you. Do you bring that, just in case, like an Andrew Meister needs you to hop on there and take it down the track because he's busy?
I don't think it fits I don't think it's the right SFI certification now. It's
okay.
A few years old. And it was a single layer, so it doesn't fit all the requirements that we require as far as safety. So when I drove Meister's tractor, I actually wore his fire suit. So
yeah,
may have stretched it out a little bit, but I did wear his fire suit.
Did you drive Cody Meyer's turbine? Is that the one that you drove?
Yes.
Okay, so between Cody's mod, Andrew's tractor, your own truck, is it once that hook hits, is it kind of the equal amount of adrenaline pumping, or did you have a different experience? Was there one ride that you took that was kind of your biggest thrill down the track? Did they feel different driving them?
I think driving the truck, hitting the end of the hook, you felt it a lot more in your feet, when you tighten that chain. But there's still that level of adrenaline that goes through you and the excitement, that especially driving the turbine, because I'd never driven, something with an aircraft engine on it before, and it made me a little bit nervous. But yeah, just hitting the end of that hook in a truck, you feel it in your bones when you hit the end of that chain, and it's pretty cool. It's for real when you do that.
Yeah.
And waiting for that green flag, it's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. I'd love to do that again. I'd love to go truck pulling again. But when would I have time, Mike? When would I have time to
get yourself an SFI certified fire suit and just let them know, I'm just being neighborly, just in case, Al Ferguson has to go, do a DoorDash order or something. Really.
Hey, there's a guy who actually promised me some.
That he would be the one that would come to mind. Exactly. He was that. If I were to pull a name out of a hat and say a truck I could see Ron Stone in, where you said, here, Mike, you got to do both tracks for the next little bit, I'm going to go drive, I would see you in the Four Seasons Gambler. That would be a fun scenario. Yeah. I would enjoy that.
I'd love it. He offered that to me, and then got towards the end of the season, he got it running really well. And, I reminded him, I said, is today the day? And he's like, well, I said, dude, I said, the truck's running good. I said, drive it. I said, maybe we'll hit an unsanctioned hook somewhere or a brush pull, and I'll hit you up then. And he said, perfect. So, yeah, I mean, guy puts that much time into something, that much money, time, blood, sweat, and tears, I don't want to take that away from them,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because they're not out there. The one thing about pullers, and that's a great point, Ron, they will sacrifice a whole week to get the thing ready. They'll sacrifice 7 hours of driving, and then they get 9 seconds of pulling. This isn't circle track racing where they're going to get qualifying and hot laps and hours of, racing out there. They pour a lot of labor and love and resources, and they get those 9 to 30 seconds, whatever it is. And yeah, I wouldn't want to take that from them. They deserve that.
Yeah. Case gone over in Texas. He's commenting on your shirt there, Mike. What are you wearing there?
Big shout out to Eddie Holland in
Gotcha.
Vintage Nitro Designs. He hooked me up. He sent me a bunch of shirts, and I'll be honest, I feel like I can hold my own in the world of pulling history. This is not one I'm familiar with, but this is the Great Escape tractor out of San Antonio, Texas, twin engine modified tractor. So go check him out, Eddie Holland at Vintage Nitro Design. He's got amazing stuff out there. He sent me this vinyl poster back here that's got all these vintage four-wheel drive trucks on it as well. He's got some cool stuff. If you like 1980s, 1990s, and he's got drag racing and NASCAR, and if you like vintage motorsports, the guy's an amazing graphic designer, and he's got some cool apparel.
Yeah, I've seen some of the pictures he has out there. Some of the others that really brought back some memories.
Yep.
For me, seeing as a kid or just seeing in magazines as a kid, I know one was like the old Tennessee Stud, a Dodge super modified four-wheel drive. He had a picture of that on Facebook there for a while, and it's like, wow, I've seen that picture.
Yeah.
A picture of that truck in a really long time, but it was that's pretty cool.
Well, we got to be friends in the most roundabout Mike's an idiot sort of way, but I finally figured it all out. I was doing some research on Kenneth Popham about a year ago. Kenneth was someone who I'd found intriguing. You know, he'd won 9 points championship with the Outlaws, and I was looking for pictures of his four-wheel drive truck, just a little bit outside of my time, outside of my area. And so I messaged Eddie because I knew Eddie had, all of these resource materials. And I said, hey, can you send me any pictures of Popham's truck? And he sent me a whole bunch of pictures, great photos. I was talking to Dave Bennett later on, and he said, well, Popham was one of those janky powered trucks. They had the janky power plant in them, along with Manuel Moreno's Yellow Rose of Texas, and then the Texas Blue Bonnet. And I was like, oh, that's really, really cool. Well, come to find out, Joe Claypool, right over here in Macon, Missouri, ended up buying the old Texas Blue Bonnet. Now, at this point, I had no idea who drove the Texas Blue Bonnet. I tagged Joe in a picture of it, and Eddie commented, and he said, yeah, I remember when we sold that to you. And I said, wait a minute. I said, you and your dad, you drove the Blue Bonnet? I was sitting here talking to you about a sister truck to you a year ago, and I never even put 2 and 2 together and realized that you guys had the Blue Bonnet. And he said, yeah, 100%. That was us. And they even won. His father, Roy, won a points championship with the Outlaws 1994, driving a truck he called the Texan. So pulling history, folks. I don't know what the moral of this story is, but it's fun and you'll make friends. And yeah, Eddie Holland does great work out there. And these vintage trucks, he knows his stuff.
Yep. Zuck Fukerberg says, yeah, he has some cool stuff. But Chris Slaughter here you go, Mike. Here's your chance. Chris Slaughter says either one of you or I could drive the Mistress somewhere.
I've been building so many pullers, and fans have come up to me since I started announcing and said, you can do it, that I've started building a false sense of confidence surrounding this. and a part of me is like, all right, Chris, let's do it. That sounds great. Ron, don't let me drive a pulling vehicle. If you see me, you know how antsy and wired I get just holding a microphone. If you ever see me bouncing around asking for a fire suit, steer me back to the crow's nest and just say, up here is enough for you, my friend.
We'll get you behind the wheel here one of these days. Maybe
you're not helping the situation.
Yeah.
Hey, I will. I'm starting to think maybe I can do it just to, why not? Why not?
Big Blank Sports super fan watching from Inwood, Iowa. Marty Samuels says, is Andrew going to pull more with the Outlaws next year? Good question. If Andrew's watching.
Is he talking about Andrew Sprock?
I think he's talking about Andrew Meister.
Andrew Meister, okay, because I knew Sprock was commenting earlier as well. True. Yeah, Meister, but Meister gets he gets busy. He does a lot of the engine work, I think, for a lot of those guys, but dominant puller when he's out there, Yeah,
definitely. Kay says Duffin Machine Shop is his machine shop he uses, and that was their tractor, he said.
See, this is what I'm talking about. You accidentally make friends doing all this awesome stuff. I'll reach out to you, Case. I know that we're friends on Facebook now because I want to hear more about this tractor. So that's way cool. Super awesome.
There's Eddie commenting there. Said thanks for the support.
Yep. Nope. Thank you for all you're doing.
And And Doug Bose says he believed Eddie's dad pulled in Lindsay, Texas, there where Doug lives in Lindsay, Texas. So very cool. Yeah, you start uncovering some hidden treasure, and things just start popping up left and right, Mike.
Yeah, well, and like I got it in my drawer here. I'm trying to start a collection. I ordered a vintage magazine of the Puller magazine. I know you kind of like the power pulling or pulling power.
Yeah.
And I kind of grew up looking through the Puller, so I ordered one, and it was like November 1983 or something like that. And I was flipping through it, and I saw a winner in the 5500 Super Stock class was PC Long, longtime announcer and puller right here out of Bevier, Missouri, next door neighbor to mine. You know, knew him very well. So I was like, well, that's a small world. And I flipped through, and we got to the they had a dragway. I think it was in San Antonio. And I saw all the names right there, Popham and Holland and all of them. And they like swept the whole weekend at that one. So, yeah, it is a small world once you kind of start digging into not only the past, but people that are still out there right now in the world of pulling.
Let's see here. Well, it said a new one popped up, but there's not. So here we go. Eddie. So the Alamo Dragway.
Yeah, the Alamo Dragway. Yep. That was a neat story. Yep, I read about that one. Wintertime is a good time. I'm learning to do your homework a little bit, do a little research. I've been sitting down. Of course, Dan Mayer's got his channel on YouTube where he posts up a lot of the vintage pulls from back in the day. And, then there's 816 Motorsports that also does an awesome job. Will Mann's out there, tech official for the Outlaws. Then it gets dark early, and you can, dive into some past pulls. And it's fun to see who still kind of pops up from way back when and who's still around and who's connected to who. So,
yeah, that's, there was a Dan posted something on a pulling reference. That, showed the Old Blue.
I saw you and Will both commenting on that. And you said that he'd actually pulled with you.
He had pulled with the Flint Hills truck pullers. He came out and pulled a few times, and for the life of me, I couldn't remember his name, but I knew I had some video on VHS. Now, I'm not sure where those are right now. We're talking early 2000s, maybe 2005, 2004, maybe even 2003, that he pulled with us a few times, as well as some other trucks, the Outlaw Chevy truck, four-wheel drive, the Hulk from out in western Kansas had pulled with us a few times. But for the life of me, I could not remember his name. And I thought, man, I am going to have to dig out those VHS tapes because it was driving me nuts. And then Will came out and answered the question. And I was like, yeah, that sounds familiar. So
I tell you what, Will can hold his own with the best of them. It's kind of a niche market. Those of us who like that vintage pulling stuff, you're not going to stump Will too often. He's pretty good when it comes to knowing and identifying stuff from back in the day.
Oh, he's always been a fan of pulling. He's a pulling junkie, like you and I are. But he goes way back, from back in the day. I've been a pulling fan since I was probably still in diapers, Mike, when it started, and it just gets in your blood. Once it's in your blood, you ain't getting it out of there. It's there to stay. Brandon Gilliland checking in from down in Uvalde, Texas. Maybe he's in the combine. He does custom harvesting out there. So a lot of guys still in the combines, a lot of guys and gals in their combines still bringing in the harvest. So thanks for checking in. So, good show here tonight. We didn't have a lot lined up. I just got back about 3:00 this morning. Still kind of sleepy and got to work today and trying to get some things lined out. But I was just looking through and several things. We could have as many as 5 new pulls for 2026. Looking through here, I'm not saying we will, but potentially we could have as many as 5 new pulls. A couple of those are definite. Some are possible. And we got at least one pull was one night in 2025 that very well could be 2 nights in 2026. So we'll see how it all pans out. All that stuff going on right now. Of course, the fairs conventions are coming up starting in December, January, and February. So there still could be some new ones get added, Mike. If we can do it, we will. So that's where we get into these regions. We have to make these regions happen in order to take on
Yeah.
uh, new venues. Skyler Leaper, 3.0 diesel pickup champion this year. Any winter pulling this year in the South? Well, I think it's not an Outlaw hook, but down in Hammond, Louisiana, that one goes on in
Yeah. That one was in March, wasn't it? I
March
thought that
or
was
April.
closer
Yeah.
to the spring. Yeah. Then there's, and we like the Outlaws, but like I know in Tennessee and Kentucky, they have some smaller indoor shows.
TNT, yeah.
I think TNT runs at least one, if not two, in Tennessee. Really fast indoor clay tracks, big time 2-wheel drive trucks. Light limited super stocks are big down there in the wintertime as well, because they run kind of exclusively alcohol. But our big partners at Full Pull Live, because they're partners with outlawpulling.tv, they'll if you're curious about indoor pulls in the wintertime, tune in with them, and I'm sure that they'll put some out there. Brings up a good and fun question, and this is the next thing I need to research. The indoor or wintertime circuit with the Outlaws that used to exist, where they would run the open classes, where you could run a alcohol burning super stock up against like a modified or something like that, and the Outlaws would actually crown winter champions back in the day. I don't know enough about it. I don't know if we're talking decades ago or if it was 90s, 2000s. I kind of feel like it was late 90s, early 2000s, because I kind of remember looking through some programs as a kid and looking at those wintertime champions. That would be neat. We ask a lot of our association as it is. We ask a lot of our pullers, Ron, but just from a conceptual standpoint, that'd be cool. I miss announcing pulls. I wouldn't mind doing some December shows, I think that would be fun.
Well, there has been an exploratory committee exploring the potential for another indoor pull. No details yet, but it would be in the Midwest. So I'll just leave it at that for now.
The amount of things that you are leaving our fans, you need to have like a post-show podcast of your own where you try to guess at the things that Ron is teasing. So you looked at maybe at a pull in Oklahoma, and now you're going to drop this right before we sign off, and the fans are like, wait a minute. And they're all kind of thinking, and I know where their mind's going to go. I can kind of pinpoint this city that it would have been most comparable to in years gone by, and they're going to say, okay, something's coming back. This is exciting, fun stuff.
Winter pulling used to be huge. It did used to be really big. United States Hot Rod Association, TNT, pro shows, and SRO, and I mean, as a kid, I went to a lot of those shows. I went to pulls at Arrowhead Stadium, not necessarily in the winter. Went to pulls at Kemper Arena. Went to pulls in Charleston, West Virginia, the Charleston Civic Center as a kid. Watched TNT pull there. I'm trying to think of where else I may have went to watch indoor pull, but yeah, that was huge back in the day. I mean, I can remember, and you could still pull these up on YouTube, Mike.
Yep. I've been watching a lot of them. Dan's collection.
Some of the pulls down south where they literally would pull 150 feet.
Well, I was just going to ask you. I just watched one. I just finished it. Big thank you, Dan Mayer, Pulling Reference Rewind. I mean, seriously, best thing to do on a winter day if you're looking into getting into this stuff. It was somewhere in Georgia, and the winning distance, the full pull mark was 130. That's crazy to think. That's wild. But hey, I don't think pulling.
I don't think you could pull that off now.
No, you couldn't.
Then that was a heavy sled too. That was the old school sled.
The dead weights, they weren't race sleds.
It literally on those short tracks looked like slow motion. You were watching. Would be comparable to a slow motion reel today. So,
but they were chasing an indoor point circuit, which was just neat, kind of cool, and they were selling out a bunch of fans. They're in the 80s. NASCAR hadn't risen to the dominant one yet, and Monster Jam wasn't what it was yet. So they were throwing a lot at the wall with motorsports, and you could really tell that tractor pulling was neck and neck with a lot of these things. And they were kind of like, we don't know who's going to emerge, who's going to land a TV deal with CBS or something like that. So the fans, and I think it speaks volumes to the fans were just as eager and excited to watch a pull as they were mud run or a 4-wheeler race or a drag race. And it makes me feel like they still would be. I think these fans that watch Monster Jam and watch NASCAR, watch NHRA, great associations, but I think they would be just as likely to enjoy a tractor pull. It's just a matter of finding that right combination to get them hooked on it the way we are.
Yeah, Chris Slaughter says in the late 80s there was a pull in Ames, Iowa, Hilton Arena.
Yeah, I went to we go to a couple basketball games up there every year, and I remember thinking to myself, I was looking at it. I was just getting ready to go to Freedom Hall. I just got back from Freedom Hall, and I was like, there is no way. It would be physically impossible to have a pull inside Hilton Arena or Hilton Coliseum, whatever they call it up there. I said, it's just way too small. And no sooner did I have that thought, I did some research a couple days later, and yeah, there were big time pulls in that place. Yeah. But it's smaller than Freedom Hall, and it really lets you realize they've got something kind of special down there in Louisville to be able to have almost 250, 260 feet of pulling surface in a basketball arena. That's something that is kind of neat. I always wondered, why not football arenas? Why do we end up going to these basketball arenas? I think of like where the St. Louis Rams used to play. And I don't know, maybe it would be the same, but it seems like you could almost stretch that out to 300 feet. But
I would, football arena indoor. I'm certain that you could. It's just, the money. It's a big money game. I mean,
yeah,
to rent a facility that big, to lease it for, say a week, to prepare for the event, to build the track, but I'm sure it would be super expensive to rent out a football stadium these days. And, you'd have to protect if they had turf or what have you down. So, it would be a big undertaking. And then, of course, is the risk worth the reward? Are you going to be able to put enough butts in the seats to?
Yeah,
there's
butt,
you know what I mean? So, from a promoter standpoint, it's risky, unless you've got a lot of big sponsors, but sponsors, they want to see a lot of butts in the seats and exposure. So, back in the 80s, will we ever recover that? The mojo pulling hat? I don't know. I'd like to think so. If we could ever.
It feels now like we're like the buzz and the energy around pulling. It feels the same. Now, what the 80s didn't have to compete with that we do is video games and TikTok and Netflix. I think ours is motivating people to leave the house, to go do something, and to do something that lasts for more than 20 minutes or 90 seconds or whatever. Back then you went to a pull at the Alamo Dragway, like Eddie was saying, because you got nothing else to compete with. The best thing you can do is watch Matlock, or I don't know, I wasn't in the 80s, Ron. I don't know what you guys watched on TV in the 80s, but now you're sitting there and people have everything they could ever want right here. I think it's getting them past that and getting them back out in the real life and seeing these things for real. I think that's what we're fighting against now, because the energy and the discussion around pulling feels as exciting as it was in its glory days. It's just we have more to compete against.
Yeah. Like I said, I think the key is, crossing that bridge, making that connection to people who stereotype our events, our sport as being podunk, or it's beneath them, or it's too slow, or they're simply think it's some Johnny Poppers out pulling 2 miles an hour or a mile and a half. It's not that, and a lot of people think that's what it is.
That when the words tractor pull, unless you know what you're talking about, people assume, okay, it's a bone stock 40-20 at best, and it's in some dude's field, and then they don't even know what it's pulling. But they're not thinking a professional motorsports competition.
My favorite thing when I hear it is when someone says, "What is it? A mud pull?" It's like, oh my gosh, they have no idea.
No.
So Mark Ulmer says Silverdome had pulls and ran diesels without a smoke machine. I've heard of that in several venues back in the early days. There was I guess in Kansas City, there was an indoor arena there where they ran without a smoke tube, and they said people in the upper sections, they had windows that would pivot open, kind of like the old schoolhouse windows, and people would literally hang their heads out the windows to get fresh air. Crazy things that we could do then, but you definitely cannot do now and get away with it.
I'll say this much: I'm thankful for the smoke tube at Freedom Hall, but I've sat on the way up their seats many a times, and the thing about those alcohol fumes, they don't stay in that lower bowl. They get it is thick and warm and muggy, and you don't need as much outside. You don't need to drink as much alcohol, maybe I should say, because you feel a little bit. The lower bowl is a nice treat if you can find your way there at Freedom Hall.
Those alcohol fumes hang in the air if you don't have poor circulation, I promise you. So, well, Mike, let's wow, we went for a whole hour just doing nothing but talking about pulling here. So thanks to all the folks checking in tonight. Thanks to all the super fans out there. I know there's a couple questions that he get answered there. Zuck Fukerberg checking in. I don't know the dates of the Hammond, Louisiana poll. Right now was a question he had, but thanks everyone for watching and submitting all your questions. Mike, thank you. And we will see you next Tuesday night, Banquet Week. We'll see you next Tuesday night on Outlawed Live. Thanks, Mike. Thanks everyone for watching.